Hello, sweethearts. Welcome to me, Fieros, on my channel, Fieros Reborn. For I am reborn, and this is my channel. And welcome to it all. Okay, so I have a new light bulb, which hopefully you will be able to see. There it is. This is a pull string light bulb. You pull the string and the bulb says, "Oh yes, I will turn on." This light bulb is an old light bulb now, not new. And then we have this other light bulb here. This is the lighting we have to deal with. So those are my three lights. Welcome. Let's get rid of that. Look at that mess. It's disgraceful. So that's why we have the background, backdrop. Right. So we're going to carry on talking about psych ward type nonsense, by which I mean my life story beginning between 2004, starting in 2004 and going until 2014, about 10-year period. So I'm going to try and do a bit of a summary. Got my lovely necklace on again. I've had a couple of compliments recently about my necklace in public, which has been nice. One person said, "Oh, I like your necklace," and then they asked me if I made it, and I was like, "Yeah, I did." And then another person wanted to take a picture of it because they liked it, and they took a really, really good picture of it. Really nice, clear camera on their phone. Yeah, so everything's good there on that front. Okay, so right, three things to say about this first. I want to do a brief summary of everything as far as we've got to, and then I want to see if there's anything left to talk about on the Mr.B side of things. I've revealed Mr.B's real name in a previous video, but I actually prefer now to call him Mr.B. It's just weird. It just sounds right. And then I want to do so the third part is to try and do some about the Ward 10, the first psychiatric ward that I was in. So I feel like I want to catch us back up to speed and try and get some sense of like narrative thread from beginning to Mr.B to then going into the psychiatric ward. Because if I can kind of do it very quickly in a summary, it feels like therefore I have processed it really well. And eventually I won't have to talk about it, and I won't feel the urge to talk about it anymore at all, unless someone asks me about it. But at the moment it's still the sense of like there's some pressure that I need to relieve from, by talking about it. So let's start at the beginning. So I've arbitrarily started the story at 2004. It's not that arbitrary. It does have some meaning. I mean, there's a certain end point to things and a new beginning. So like my school career ended then. I got 2 A's and a B in my A levels. I did art, English, and drama. Oh dear. That's such a simple thing to say. And I remember saying stuff like that shortly after I'd finished school. You know, I got AAB in art, English, and drama. I got the B in the drama. I got the 2 A's in art and English. But because so much other shit happened after that, it's like it was just hard to even kind of say in a normal, sensible way, like anything about my past really, without it meaning far too much, if that makes sense. So I got AAB in my A levels. I was disappointed with the B in the drama. But I understand why I got it, because basically I'd not done drama before in a formal teaching school lesson type of way. I'd only done plays in the school, school plays and pantomimes and stuff like that, and my own home videos. But that wasn't a academic study of it. That was just the acting of it, right? So I didn't know any theories. I didn't have to write any essays about it. And so when it came to actually studying it as a topic, I just didn't understand it, and it kind of blew my mind in a bad way. Like I don't get it. I don't get it. And I remember being in the drama room actually. Yeah, that's a good point. I went through a real tough moment, and it seems to really be related to the drama room. And I'm not sure whether it's just something to do with the room itself because of the fact that there were no windows in the room. So the drama room that we had at Langley Grammar School, which is the school that I went to, the drama room that we had was a big room, like a hall with a really high ceiling. It feels like it's pretty much a square room, but maybe slightly deeper than a square. So yeah, a slightly off square rectangle, if that makes sense. I think it had a sloping roof, but very high roof, because there was a viewing gallery for audience members at the top. I think it was like 2 rows of audience at the top, or maybe one or 2 rows of audience in this gallery part up the top. And then they had the ability to put up rows of like audience chairs or to sit them on the floor. And we actually used to have our 6th form meetings, not meetings, what do you call them? Assemblies in that room quite often because other rooms weren't being used. And I remember some of these details actually because I went by my secondary school today, Langley Grammar School, and just had a sort of look from the outside and just sort of remembered some stuff, remembered memories. Yeah, so the drama room was a big room. It's very spacious, right? Flat floor, no permanent furniture apart from there's like a booth, a lighting booth or directors and lighting booth, sound and lighting booth at the back, and then a dress stock cupboard type of room at the back. And then I'm not exactly sure how you even got up to the bit on the top, but there was lighting rigs as well in there. But so other than that, there was no like permanent fixtures in the room. It was a blank space basically. No curtains as well. I don't think they had any curtains. You had to put up curtains specifically for stuff. And I remember doing the drama lessons, and when I first started in the 6th form, my bassist in my band was also doing drama with me in 6th form for A level, right? So that was great because he was not only my bassist, but he was a really good friend. My best friend, in fact, at the time, I would have said. And I remember feeling very depressed and confused about what I was going to do with my life, because after about 2 weeks, I think it was, my bassist decided to move to a local college instead of carrying on in the 6th form. I think it was because he decided to dye his hair blue, and they weren't accepting him dyeing his hair blue in our school, so he decided that he wanted to keep his hair blue and he'd go to somewhere that would allow him to have his hair blue. So he went to a local college called Strode's College in Egham. And that was closer to his area anyway. He lived in Ashford, and which is nearer to Egham than it is to Langley. And so he went to that college, leaving me in the drama by myself with a lot of people who had already done drama beforehand, like at GCSE, and I'm not sure whether my bassist had done it or not. But I felt lost basically and confused, and like I didn't really want to be there. I wanted to do the subject. I picked the subject out of the available ones because it was one that I was passionate about, something I'd always been passionate and interested in and active in was the arts and performing arts. So always being in the different plays since primary school, I think. Even though I had some rough times at primary school with remembering lines and feeling really upset with myself for not being able to remember lines. Yeah, there was a specific instance where I remember I couldn't remember a certain line and I just felt really pressured and I ended up crying and I felt like the teacher was having a go at me and stuff, and I was upset at that. But other than that, like the rest of it, I always voted myself into these plays. Like I always wanted to be in them. It was something I did, you know. It's just kind of like, I don't know, you know, like maybe if you're a sports type of person, it's like I've always done sports. Or if you're a gamer, even like I've always done games, and you've kept that up, and that's something that you've always been interested and passionate about. Well, same for me with drama or arts, performing arts of some kind, speaking, acting, um, anything to do with like being on stage and making people laugh or creating some kind of vibe, some atmosphere or whatever. Some drama, yeah. So I was always interested in that. And so when I got to school, secondary school in year 7, there was a play that was put up quite quickly, and I remember voting myself in for that somehow and getting into that, and being a minor character with a couple of lines about penny sweets. The play was called Our Day Out, I think, yeah, and it was about a school trip that goes awry, maybe, I don't know, and so there was a lot of sitting on a chair pretending to be on a school bus. And that was good. And I had my friend next to me, who wasn't really my friend, who I actually didn't like, who followed me from primary school to secondary school. As in, like, it seemed that we were never friends at primary school. I didn't talk to him. I didn't like him. He was kind of like a reject kid who no one liked. He smelled bad. He was just one of those weird kids who never really fitted in. But then when we got to secondary school, I was the only person that he knew. But there were other people who were kind of from our primary school who came with us to secondary school. But this guy just kind of wouldn't leave me alone for the first few weeks. And I was like, you're so boring and you smell and like you're not funny and you're just irritating and you're clingy as well. He's really clingy. But I remember he put himself into the play as well, so we had to be friends. Yeah, which was annoying. But I kind of managed to find other people to be friends with quickly because I was like, God, I got to swap chairs, man. You know when you're in secondary school and you have chairs, your certain chair that you sit in, and maybe that's pre-arranged by the teacher, or maybe you have the choice, whatever. But I remember going, oh man, I need to change chairs. I need to go sit with someone else. This is madness. I don't want to be with this person. Yeah. So I did that play, and then there were other plays as well, and I tried to get in on it every year if possible. Yeah, whenever possible. I can't remember all the other ones, but I was in a production of, what's it called? Oh God. So our drama teacher, Mr. Lambert, came up with, he devised. So he was an active playwright as well as a drama teacher and a director of plays. So he was teacher, director, playwright, songwriter as well, actually, music composer. And he's also written books of poetry and prose as well. So he would create plays, and he created one about the Guy Fawkes thing, Gunpowder Plot, right? November the 5th, Guy Fawkes Day, which is relevant because it's the 8th of November, and so it was only a few days after Guy Fawkes Day. But I was in this play that he had devised, written, whatever you call it. It was a musical, and it was called, I don't know what it was called. Maybe it's called just Guy Fawkes Day. Guy Fawkes Day, I think, maybe. And it was a dramatic adaptation or retelling of the Guy Fawkes Day story. You know, the gunpowder plot to blow up the Houses of Parliament and Guy Fawkes getting found and getting executed. But there was a bit of a love story thrown in there as well, which was bizarre. It was a bizarre love story. I had to kiss someone who I didn't find attractive at all, and had to act as though I was attracted to this person who I really wasn't attracted to. I actually kind of found some of her beauty towards the end, but also there was some tension because she had a boyfriend, and the boyfriend was kind of big and scary, and I had to kiss her, and her boyfriend was like, yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so I was the lead role. Oh, I don't think I mentioned that actually. I was the lead role of Guy Fawkes in that, and it was a singing role, so I sang. And one of the girls who I was flirting with from my class, who I'd had this crush on since I was in year 8, and I just I remember my crush developing on her, and I remember just always looking around to see where she was and what she looked like, and just I was like always looking at her. And this was in year 8, and I found this girl attractive, and I presume that she probably wasn't that attractive, like, because I know that when you look back on how you looked when you were a teenager, your teenage years are one of the worst years possible that you, like, the worst years you've ever looked, if that makes sense. Like, between the ages of kind of like 12 and maybe 18, those are the worst appearance years of your life. You know, you go from being cute and adorable and whatever when you're a young person, a child. Fuck. And then you get to like the age of 12 and puberty kicks in and your face just goes and it kind of, and as it's changing into a more adult shape, it just goes through different phases of contortion, like, you know, and you get spots all over the place, which is really annoying because no one ever has yet found a cure for teenage spots. No one knows how to deal with it and get rid of it and stop it. You can put zit cream on. Oh, there are all different kinds of zit creams that are available. Eh? What was the main one? Oh, there's one in particular, Oxy on the spot, something like that. Like, facial fucking those pore things, pore cleansers. You kind of rub them in, and they got these micro little beads in them, and you like try exfoliation cream things. Yeah, so I had those, and then you have this. These kind of on the spot ones where you kind of try and you put the cream on the thing, and it sort of tries to, you know, get rid of it somehow, and it sort of like acids it away or whatever. And then you've got the squeezing approaches as well. And of course, so you've got these different types of spot, haven't you? You got your kind of really big, fat, fucking ginormous pus-filled ones, and you pop them and go everywhere. Which, I mean, what are these things made of? How do they happen? Why do they happen? Do we not know how to get rid of them? And people say, oh, if you eat chocolate, then it makes it worse. I didn't eat fucking chocolate.
I mean, no one. I don't think there's a precise recipe for how to cure spots, and there's not a precise recipe to make them worse either. But it's just something you have to fucking deal with. Everyone has them in teenage times. But this guy who used to sit next to me, he had them so bad. Oh man, his face was just a one giant spot. It was just he had them all over his nose constantly. There was always about 5 on his nose. His nose was just like, and his nose already looked bad anyway. Like, he didn't have a particularly attractive shaped nose. I think, not by my standards anyway. But maybe that was why the spots just coagulated onto that particular part. Like, and he'd have them everywhere, like one coming out of his eye. It was just, it was a mess. It was a mess, and a poor guy, because he must have had a real rough time going through secondary school. Because if you've got loads of spots and they're really bad, then you get picked on for having loads of spots. I mean, everyone kind of understands that
some people have got spots, or everyone has spots, buboes, pus-filled little globules of shit on your face. But if they're really bad, then you get picked on and teased, right? Anyway, how do we get to that? Yeah, so your teenage years are like the worst years that you ever, the worst looking years you go through. Even if you're reasonably attractive, your face still goes like that, or you know, something goes fucked for your face for a while. But you only really know the full extent of that when you look back. So during the time of going through teenage years, you might think you're really attractive, and you certainly are aware of who you find attractive. Well, I was anyway. Anyway, I've really found this this girl in my class really attractive, but I don't think it was about her looks. It was just something about her that I was always like, ooh, I need to, like, I get into a class. I remember being in the English class, right? So we all pile into the English class. We sit down in our regular seats. As I say, you got to pick your chairs, right? And it tended to be that everyone would pick the same chairs over and over again in the same kind of layout of the room. But every now and again, you'd move somewhere else, and you go, "Oh my god, it's like the whole room has changed because you're over there, and you're so used to sitting in the same chair over and over again." Yeah, but we've moved over here now. It's like the whole room has changed. It's a completely different viewpoint on life. It's true. It really was. It's like, oh my god, everything has changed. So that's a key. If you're in a successful chair, if you find a good chair for yourself in a academic environment, and you're like, this is my power chair. This is the chair that brings me the results, right? And if you're onto a good streak in that chair, stay in that chair and don't try and mix it up. But then if you go into a losing streak in your academic results, then change up the chair, get a new viewpoint, right? Good idea, because you can anchor into the badness or anchor into the goodness, because the chair is the place where you receive the information from. And if you keep getting bad results, you're going to anchor in, and you're going to associate that chair with, oh, I'm a failure. Go and sit in a different chair, get a different slant, different view, and then you'll absorb a different understanding. Anyway, so yeah, I remember being in the English class and just like trying to just kind of look at her while paying attention to the teacher. Writing stuff down and try and like sneak a look around. She's always round the back. She's down the back of the class like that. And just like, yeah. And then it got worse as well as time went on. So I used to sit next to her in French. And so she used to be sat there doing her work or whatever. And I was like, I was always trying to peer down her top. Yeah. the eye training that you get. But you can't, because you can't be too kind of fucking, you can't be too obvious. So you have to be sort of like. Because if you actually just go, then you're going to get a slap and you're going to get harassed. As in, you're going to get busted for harassment type of thing. But so if you're just sly, then you can kind of get away with it. But then I still felt like bad. As in, I felt like, oh, I really want to look, but I'm not allowed to look because it's bad to look, but I still really want to look. Just carry on doing the work. And you're just trying to slip my eye viewpoint through this tiny little gap in her top where you see a bit of blue bra. Just like, oh yeah, and a bit of like brown flesh because she was South Indian. And it's just like, oops, it's a boobs. No, you can't do it. You can't do it with the full head. You cannot turn your full head. You just got to be like straight down. And it's got to be a side thing so that she doesn't notice. Oh, God. I'm sure a lot of guys did that. I hope they did. Otherwise, I'm the only perv in the whole world that's ever existed. Okay. So, right. That's that. Okay. Yeah. So moving forward back to the drama room. It was a big room. My bassist had gone off to a different school, college, right? And he was going to study music production, I think, or music engineering, sound engineering, or music production, one or the other, or both. And I was there in this drama room, feeling this confused, lost feeling, because my bassist was like my best friend at that time. He was my best friend. I'd grown closer to him than my other best friend, on account of the band that we were in. So we've been doing gigs and rehearsals, and so I felt like we were really in a good connection. And there's something else that happens when you're in a band with people. It's like it's hard to describe the sensation of connection. It's almost like intimacy. It's like a new level of bonding. It's bonding. Bonding sounds better than intimacy. Yeah, so it's a different type of bonding that happens when you're in a band, because you're sharing something. Well, you're sharing the music, and it's like that connects you all together, and you're all playing a part, and you're all like working towards something together, and you're all enjoying something together, and you all have the same overall thing to be in reference to. So you're all in reference to the music or the rehearsal or the gigs, and you all have your own piece of input. So it's really something special, I think, to be in a band. Because you're contributing your creativity and you're enjoying yourself, and there's this kind of intimacy is kind of a good word, because music is emotional. Music is powerful. Music has the rhythm of life in it, the spirit of life in it. So when you connect with a group of people making something together, and while it's working, then it is an intimate experience in some way. It's an emotionally connected experience, which is something different in my experience from other types of relationships. So being in a musical relationship takes it to another place, which unfortunately, in the same way as intimate relationships can be difficult and stressful and have ups and downs and be disharmonious and dysfunctional, in that same way as your boyfriend girlfriend type of thing or spouse relationship can be fraught with difficulties because of the intimacy. In that same way, you can have that trouble and difficult relationship negotiating the intimacy of a band relationship, because everyone's an individual, yet you're coming together to create something that's more than the sum of its parts. So when your individual needs are in conflict with the other individual needs of the different people, and your desires and tastes and whatever, and your situations as well, so timing in terms of what's going on in your life, what's going on in their life, this person's life, la la la. So when those are all kind of whack, then it can be difficult, because it's another intimacy thing. You're joined together by this common purpose and this common theme or goal, and then if some people aren't on board with that, then it can be like similar, but not, I don't know, similar to like being in a romantic relationship of some kind, or an intimate relationship, a very close relationship, because they are close relationships. You're sharing things at a different level than you would if you're just sitting there talking to a person about the weather or what's been going on in your life, because you have to go to a somewhat deeper place to talk about things in a more meaningful way if you're going to create music about them, right? And you're sharing feeling. That's my experience of it anyway. So it can be like more difficult when things go wrong than in your normal friendship or acquaintance type relationships or work colleague relationships, because like more's going on. So it can be a bit kind of like, whoa. Yeah. So anyway, what I'm saying is I had this good connection with this bassist who was a really good friend of mine. We were like, great things were going on in our band for us at the time. And then he's gone, and I'm like, maybe I should go, basically, is what I came to the conclusion of. Maybe I should be following my music rather than staying at this school and doing these subjects. Maybe because my passion was music. After school, I wanted to do my music. I just wanted to continue doing music. You know, the subjects that I was doing were because I had to do them, and I couldn't do the A level of music because I hadn't done the GCSE. That was a requirement. And I couldn't do the GCSE of music if I wanted to do art, I think it was. I think I was only allowed like one creative subject, and I chose art at that time because I hadn't fully developed my interest in being in a band. I wasn't in a band when I was 14. I got in a band when I was like 15, 16. And by that point, I'd missed the boat. I did think about doing music. I did ask to be able to do music at GCSE as well as art, but I wasn't allowed to because of the rules of the school. They wanted to channel you into more kind of IT, humanities, so geography, history, languages, whatever. You couldn't swap. There wasn't as much flexibility as I would have liked. I would have liked to have done, for example, drama, art, and music. I was only allowed to do one of them, so I had to pick the one that I don't know, I just picked art. Yeah. So anyway, so when I finished secondary school, I wanted to just carry on doing my music with the band because that was my dream to become successful. It still kind of is in a way. It may well be that my success has to tone down from the original wild world touring dreams, and maybe a better goal for me would to be to make money from my own music, not necessarily touring or doing big gigs or anything, but doing enough and selling recordings to make a living from it, or a supplement to my income from other different things that I do. So I think that's a more kind of humble goal. But I'd like to play some big gigs still. I'd like to be in a band. I'd like to be in a regularly gigging band. I'd like to keep writing music. I'd love to record some more music. There's nothing better than listening to a CD or MP3 nowadays, isn't it? But there's nothing better than listening to a CD of some really well recorded, high quality recordings of your own music, or my own music. For me, is it's really powerful and important experience for me to have, is to hear my own music done, produced to a high quality, because it feels like, yeah, this is the vision, this is how I wanted it to sound. So yeah. So my bassist had gone, and I was considering to go as well. So I went to Strode's College, but by that point, right, the term had already kind of kicked off. The term had been going for a few weeks now, and it was I couldn't just join in, I think, and what I wanted to do was somehow manage to like up my pace of how I learned, so that I could catch up with people, or do 2 years in one or something the following year. But they wouldn't let me do it, even though I was like, oh, I'm really academically brilliant and so on. They're just like, no. So we went to an open day and we discussed things with the music production people at that department, and it just turned out like no. So I was gutted, basically. I was gutted, and I had to go back to doing the drama at my school. I just remember being in the drama hall, being like, fuck, man. I was really depressed that my bassist had left, and I couldn't leave to do what I thought I wanted to do, so I had to stick it out in this place I didn't really want to be. But that must have faded, because I remember getting into it eventually, the drama. Although some of the most difficult experiences I had at school were in that drama room, because there's one particular guy who was such a fucking dick to work with. He just rejected every idea that anyone else came up with, and then wouldn't come up with any ideas for himself. So you got someone who will just like say no to doing anything, and say no to everyone else's ideas, and say that everyone else's ideas are bad, and then wouldn't contribute anything himself either. So he was just like a dead weight, annoying person, who seemed to think that he knew best, but in fact he was just being a dick for everyone else. and there was like two people who were doing that actually, who were just like so passionate about their opinion on things that they were both just kind of causing a fuss for everyone else and putting a kind of real roadblock on things. And the drama teacher was like, look, you're doing this, so find a way to make it work. Like, and so we did eventually. As I say, I wrote a script for the first thing we did, and then I forgot a load of my lines that I'd written myself, which was shit and really embarrassing and filled me with a feeling of dread and shame and the wish to escape and flee. But I didn't. I stuck it out. But I am pretty sure that the examiner at the back of the room probably went and went on his little pad. Maybe he was trying to check out the breasts of someone. Someone in the audience. So he's noting down that, oh, performer has frozen on stage. And then he's like, oh, I'll just put some extra bad marks in there while I... Yeah. I don't think you can see what my hands are doing, which is a bit of a shame. Yeah. So, so I dropped that, and I was pretty pissed at myself afterwards. Like, I was gutted of that, from that as well. We did a couple of other plays, and that went well. Those went well. I did an extra play as well by a different director who was the English teacher, my favourite English teacher, who I felt was like more than just an English teacher. He was a wise person. He was basically like Gandalf, but in bald, slightly gingery, Mr. Burns style hair. It was really tall, but he was basically Gandalf, apart from the appearance of his hair. He was Gandalf because he had these stories and this wisdom and this kind of insight into life. That was, there's just something about him that you just felt like the guy had lived. You felt like he had lived, and he continued to live, and that he knew himself, and he knew what was valuable in life from his point of view anyway. However, later on, as we were starting to develop our opinions on things ourselves, people did clash with him occasionally, because he also had strong opinions on how the lines were to be delivered. So as a director, he was a bit of a kind of fucking control freak, basically, because he had a very strict interpretation of how things should be portrayed. He had a very strict vision of how things should be done with regard to the acting and the delivery of lines, which meant that some people who wanted to bring their own interpretations to the character or to the lines ended up feeling like I don't have much space to express what I think about this character here. But other than that, I found him. I prefer him as an English teacher than a director. I think as a director, he was. I didn't like him as a director as much because he was just too rigid on everything. But as an English teacher and as a person overall, this teacher, I found him to be very wise. Yeah, and kind of he was accepting and he was insightful and he also was helpful in terms of being able to sort of suggest things. People feared him though. People really feared him because he wasn't. He was encouraging, yet he wouldn't spare you if you were doing shit. For example, he was trying to kind of encourage you, and he would give honest feedback, both positive and negative. But it wasn't even really about positive and negative. The way I see it now is that he was just looking to the sense of quality. And if you weren't fulfilling or you weren't bringing to the table your own intelligence and your own viewpoint on things, if you weren't actually applying yourself, then he would be able to sense that. And, you had these marking things. Teachers have these marking criteria that they have to fucking note everything against. And I think teachers, certainly this teacher, didn't really like the whole marking system. Like, he wanted to be able to basically sort of say, whether it was intelligent or not, and whether it was put together well and thought out and so on. But he had to kind of grade it based on these different points. So I think there was a certain sense that he reluctantly gave people bad grades because he had to, but he would rather have just said, look, you need to do this, this, and this in order to improve, and I have to use this criteria grid because this is my job. And according to the criteria grid, I have to give you this mark because this is what you've presented and this is how it fits against this criteria grid. But I'm pretty sure that if he didn't have to do that, and he was always complaining about the national curriculum and the fact that he's like, it doesn't give him as a teacher the ability to assess things according to his own intelligence, if that makes sense. Yeah, but I'm pretty clear that if he had the ability to assess you on his own understanding of things, that people probably would have done better actually, and that people wouldn't have been so afraid of him. I don't know why they were so afraid of him, because he was never particularly punitive. Like he was never, he kind of rarely told people off. He shouted at us like once in 4 or 5 years of having him, and that was because we wouldn't settle down, so he shouted at us to kind of to settle us down, and it worked. You know, he's the kind of person who commands respect because he has his own self-respect and he respects you. So he didn't talk down to you, basically. He never treated us as idiots. So I liked him. I don't know why people were afraid of him so much. I think it's because, like, if you want to try and get him to love you, or sort of say you're a good student, or you're doing well or whatever, it's just not going to happen, because that's not the way he worked. He wasn't the kind of person to praise people, you know, willy-nilly, or to kind of or criticize people unnecessarily. He was just being very genuine and honest, I personally think, about how he was assessing the work that had come in, and he was trying to give feedback that would be directional to help the person to improve. He was always looking to kind of bring people up. I think anyway, he was always trying to sort of bring the best out of people. So when he was giving his feedback, he was like saying, you know, we've had like a few D's from you already, and you know, you can do better than this and stuff like that. But I think why people were afraid of it is because he would give out his feedback publicly to everyone. So he'd hand back the stuff, and then he would tell you the feedback while everyone else can hear. So it might have come across like a public shaming in a way, but I didn't feel like a public shaming. I think, like, because he did it equally for everyone, so he wasn't being like unfair. He would give a piece of feedback to every single person. But I think that that's what people feared, because they were afraid that they were going to do badly. And maybe I liked him more because I was good at the subject and I was doing well. Probably, yeah, obviously that's why I liked him more. But I think a lot of people respected the guy, even if they were terrified of him to begin with. When you were young, you know, he didn't, because he was never going to pussyfoot around anything. He would always tell you the truth and tell you his opinion, and then again, he would also be encouraging. Yeah, and I like the fact that he sometimes just wouldn't really stick to the topic. It was almost like he only did the stuff that we had to do because the curriculum said we had to do it, and that if the curriculum hadn't have said it, he would have quite happily just taught us from various different English literature books, as in, like, he would have just taught us his favourite books and got us to think about those books. you know, and understand those books maybe a little too strongly from his point of view, but he would also be trying to get our opinions about things all the time. So I think he would much rather have liked maybe like a more university style approach to secondary school teaching, where you just kind of like, you're studying a book and the whole point is to develop your own response to what's coming at you. You know, you're reading a book, so how do you feel? What do you think the author is doing here? Why are they saying this? That kind of thing. I think he was much more suited and much more wanted to do that kind of teaching. But all this stuff is imposed upon his job that he has to do it in certain ways. But a lot of the time he would tell us just stories from his life, which were entertaining and which always had a lesson of some kind, a kind of feeling of wisdom. And I always took on reflection. Okay, so I loved the stories. We all loved the stories because they were funny and engaging and interesting. He used to tell us about his travels and various different stories that always had a meaning. You could just tell that they had a meaning to them. You wouldn't always necessarily know what the fucking meaning was, but you're like, we love these stories. Tell us about this, sir. Tell us about that, sir. That kind of thing. So when we had a little bit of time, then he would tell us a little story about his life from previous times or recently or whatever. And the way that he told his stories was always interesting, you know. So it was that kind of he had a very rich understanding of life, I would say. And on reflection, that's why he's one of the most impactful teachers for me, because his lessons weren't only about the book or the grammar or whatever it was we're learning about. His lessons were like about life, about what does it mean to be successful, what does it mean to be human. Here's how to live a rich life. And one of his key messages was do what you enjoy and the career will find you. If there's anything that he managed to bang home, it was that, and the fact that he hated Margaret Thatcher and how Margaret Thatcher ruined everything for everyone, especially in the teaching world. But he said, do what you enjoy, because there was this big careers push in schools, and there always is these days. It's very careers oriented. But he was a real traditionalist in the sense that education is for education's sake. You do it because it's enriching. And he would say, look, do what you enjoy, follow what you enjoy. Common way of saying it would be to follow your dreams or your passions. And so he would say, do what you enjoy and the career will find you. He should have added on a tagline, which is, and if it doesn't find you, at least you'll be happy. He didn't mention that part, but that's something I've had to learn for myself. Because subconsciously and then later on consciously, I've been following that. Do what you enjoy and the career will find you. Well, the career hasn't exactly found me, but at least I'm happier than if I was in a shitty career. Like, at least I am still doing what I enjoy. Okay, so I stuck through the drama course. I got the B. I got the AAB in the secondary school. And then I got kicked out into the wide world, right? I had that relationship with Mrs. A during the last 2 years of secondary school, or a year and a half. Carried on for a little bit. Then she cheated on me, which we know about from previous videos. Catch up, people, if you don't know what's going on. She cheated on me because she fucking went to uni and did strip poker and fucking cheated on me, basically. Fuck that guy. Fuck her. I wrote a song about it called Better, which is featured on this album. 1 second. Oops. Which is available under a different name. That's my old groin. Where does it say Better? There you go, number 8, called Better. Oh, fucking hell. Better. Come on. Well, you just have to take my word for it. It is there. Better. Why are you not focusing? Autofocus. Let's click that. Good idea. Yeah. Okay. Better. Okay, so I wrote a song about that, about the breakup and experiences and so on. The feeling sorry of that shortly after finishing the relationship, pretty much mutually, because we just like, well, that's the end of it. Then we had sex a couple more times, had a nap, and then in the morning, um, no, then I went out and partied with the girl who I originally fancied from year 8, right? So I maintained that kind of flirtatious relationship with that second girl, who we will not even bother to give her a name, so we'll just say that second girl, whatever. Went out and partied on that final day of being with Mrs. A, and it happened that those two girls, Mrs. A and second one, went to the same uni, UCL. So when I went to the London, University of University of London Union, yeah. When I went to that for a club night, whatever, she was there, the second one. So Mrs. A had left her at home to fucking get it on with whoever fucking it was that she was shagging. Miss Alan, his name was Alan, right? So, and I'd gone out for a party, dancing and whatnot at the club, and got a bit drunk, and it was rubbish, and I couldn't dance because I was feeling so shit. Anyway, went back to hers, Mrs. A's. I believe we had some more sex, and then it was just like in the morning. Oh, bye then. I didn't really want it to end, but it had to end because it already had ended. You know, she was already seeing this other guy and sleeping with him, so. Bah. And they were living together, so what the fuck was I going to do? So that was the end of that. However, I didn't get over that relationship. I didn't take enough time to get over it. I didn't really know how to get over relationships. Like, it wasn't a skill that I developed at that point. I'd had two meaningful relationships before that, and one that was just a bit one that was just pretty shit, as in just didn't go anywhere. The first girlfriend I had, I don't know if I got over her or what, but she just kind of faded away, not into death, but just, I guess I got over her after a while. Or maybe I just replaced her with the next person. Ooh, that's bad, isn't it? The next person after my first girlfriend, it was just, she was really like dumb and slow and like, she used to speak like blah blah blah. I'm like, what the hell? You're really attractive. You've got massive boobs and you're really attractive. How come you're so dumb and slow? I met her on holiday, and she said that we would go out for a date when we got back, and we did go out for a couple of dates when we got back. And it's like, okay, so we like the same music, and I was attracted to her physically, but oh my god, I invited her around for dinner here, and she was just like, blah, 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 blah. She didn't get any of the jokes. Her intelligence level didn't seem to be high enough to really register humor or sarcasm. I don't know. Anyway, so that didn't work. And then also she had this kind of self-harm thing going on, which I was trying to help her with, by like trying to get her to talk about it, like why and stuff, and she wouldn't open up. So I got to a point and I'm like, okay, you know what? Fuck this. I didn't say those words, but that was my feeling. And I was like, okay, you know what? Fuck this. And I just broke up with her over a text or over the phone. Text, probably, actually. I was like, okay, fine. I'd been on the phone to her. I think I did it over the phone. Right, she lived far away-ish, so you couldn't just break up with someone. What are you going to do? Call them up to meet up with them after going out with them for like a few weeks, and then meet up with them just so, yeah, that's it. No. So I called her on the phone. We had this conversation. It wasn't going anywhere, and I was like, okay then. I think I didn't end it well, but I was like, okay, fine. Well, okay, blah blah, and then that was the end of it. And and that same night, I'd got a text from this girl who I used to know when I was in primary school. I'd re-met her at a party at sixth form. Right, I got this text from her saying, did I want to go out? I was like, yep, coming out. So I went out with them, and ended up kissing that girl and getting with her. And that was a good relationship. That was my first, like, don't know. So it's my second decent relationship. It was my first one where I was. So the first relationship I had, I was just a teenage wiener. I was a teenage dirtbag, and I was a teenage wiener, and I was younger than her, and therefore more immature than her. So the second relationship, I feel like it meant something. The first relationship was just kind of like pretty much based on lust. The second relationship had something extra. I don't know exactly how to describe it. So more of a connection, maybe. Like the first relationship felt more like she was over there and I was here, and we were kissing and cuddling, but there was a sense of like her being a very different person to who I was, even though we had some similarities, right? We were obviously attracted to each other, but she was kind of there and I was here. That's the sense that I got. Even when we were like cuddling and stuff, I get a sense that she was very different and she was like on her tangent and I was on my tangent. But this next person, because we'd known each other since primary school, and like after primary school we hadn't seen each other for like 5 years, and then she'd grown boobs and I was like, boobs, and she was kind of attractive. Yeah, she was attractive, I guess. Yeah. I found her attractive. I don't find her attractive now, but at the time I found her attractive. Right, that puts that one clear. That doesn't make sense, does it? That makes that one clear. There we go. So yeah, there was something there in that second relationship. There was like some meaning thing going on. Okay, and then that she broke up with me. Yeah, she broke up with me. And that was pretty shit because I was needy and clingy and possessive and whiny. Yeah, which are the worst things to be in a relationship. So make that note. Do not be those things. If you are being those things, then find a way to not. How do you stop that though? Okay, now it's hard, eh? And then so I went with Mrs. A. So we were together for like a year and a half, and then a little bit more after that. After sixth form ended, so then she broke up with me, or we broke up. She cheated on me, whatever. Mutually, kind of just ended because of the cheating thing. And then I went to the new job. I was working at Legoland before that. I mentioned about there was this weird guy who was like creeping on Mrs. A and being a dick to me and stuff. So fuck him. Okay, so yeah, fine. Legoland was kind of fun, kind of shit. I hate having a job. I've always hated having a job. Yeah, and okay, so I got this new job at the Outback Steakhouse. There was gay people there. I was like, oh, now let's see whether I'm gay or not, because I've always been called gay. I've never actually really known. I've always been afraid of it. Like it's not something I was allowed to be. So I wasn't allowed to express any feelings. I wasn't allowed to even even know or see if I had any feelings. I felt like it was a big kind of wall of you're not allowed to be this, so don't even go anywhere near being it, if that makes sense. And I'd always been called it, and I realized later on that the reason I was being called gay is just some kind of homophobic thing that wasn't really necessarily related to me. It was just a culture of homophobia that I personalized, whereas what I later realized was that everyone was homophobic and everyone was teasing everyone and taunting everyone with homophobic tauntings and teasings and insults, right? But I personalized it, and I felt like that because it came so much and it was always every day from people, it was just the thing that everyone was always saying, and I didn't register until later that they were saying it to everyone as well, and I was saying it to other people. But some part of me like turned it into this complex. Basically, it turned into a complex about my sexuality. And so I got to Outback, and there were gay people who weren't being homophobically taunted and abused and stuff, and who were accepted and who had a valid place, and it was just kind of normal, and it was like, okay, this has been fine for ages or something. And I was like, what? Okay. I was feeling a bit scared, honestly, and threatened, because this was a new thing, totally new thing, new culture to be around. and I was there with one of my friends from secondary school. And the bassist, he was there for a bit, and then he fucking left that as well. So there's something about this bassist, he doesn't like to stay around at things for very long. And so, okay, so I vowed to myself to get over Mrs. A and move on by New Year's, right? So New Year's is always a good cut-off point for various things. Yeah. New Year's is a good point to start things and to end things. So, yeah. Okay, so I made this kind of deal with myself, right? If she hasn't come back by New Year's of 2005, then that's it. I'm going to move on, whatever that might mean. So she didn't come back. You know, I hadn't felt like there was any positive movements. I believe we were still in touch, but there was no sign that she was interested in breaking up with the guy or just like renewing her interest in me. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to move on. So I moved on, and a signal to myself to moving on was to cut my hair and to change my sense of dress somewhat. So I did have long hair before, and I cut it short and spiky, and I had this little goatee, very small goatee beard thing, which kind of looked like a little landing strip thing on my chin, which was fun at the time. Anyway, okay, so when I cut my hair, I suddenly became more attractive to this one particular person who we will call Mr. B. Okay, and my friend was saying like, okay, why don't you test out this new gay thing, because this gay guy is interested in you. This Mr. B guy, he fancies you and he's trying to convert you and he blah blah blah. So I went, okay, yeah, you know, maybe I need to figure this out. I need to figure this out for myself, because I honestly don't know, and it is something I'm interested in or curious about. And whatever, you know, it's acceptable now, so let's give it a shot. So we arranged this party thing where the whole purpose of it was for me to get with this guy, Mr. B, and we did. And I've spoken about this at length. Still not sure whether I actually enjoyed it or not. But my statement is, statement in court, I would have preferred to have quit the job, never seen the guy again, and to just take some time to fucking think about things and to see what my feelings were, and maybe write a whole load of journal entries, and write a whole load of songs, maybe do some artwork, whatever, and talk to people, my friends and my family about it. Even a counsellor, I probably could have done with some counselling at that point in my life. Jesus Christ. Just to deal with the bullying that had come before at secondary school, because secondary school was not fun for a lot of it. So much bullying and taunting and just, oh, fuck. Yeah. The academic stuff was pretty much the only stuff I was good at. That sounds really shit, because that wasn't the case. I was also good at my band and the drama stuff, the plays, whatever. And I was okay with the women as well, if I do say so myself. I practiced my flirting skills. I learned some flirting. Yeah. Anyway, it feels somewhat irrelevant to even be talking about this, because I'm so fucking past it, so old. Like, who cares? It's not even relevant anymore in a way. Okay, so we had that first night, and then it just went, because I was working with the guy, right? So I didn't have any time to really take stock of things. So he was just constantly on my case, chasing me up on it all the time. And I just kind of went, oh, yeah, okay. So we ended up in a relationship, and one that I was constantly feeling like I didn't want to be in, and that I just wanted to get rid of him and escape it, and just felt trapped and felt guilty if I was to leave. So I was trapped by my own feeling of guilt for the kind of possibility of hurting him, or the certainty of hurting him when I broke up with him, and I just didn't know how to break up with the guy. It's like I couldn't face into that pain of that guilt. And if I could have faced into the pain of the guilt and just gone with the guilt and go, okay, yeah, even though I feel really shit about this, it still is the right thing for me to do, because I don't want to be with him, and I'm only hurting him overall on the long term by staying with him. So I didn't have that ability to just kind of say, okay, cut it off. But now I do. Anyway, so we were together for a long time, during which some good stuff happened. I recorded my first album while I was with him. Maybe that's the only good thing that happened. Okay, overall, to take lessons from it, it would be that it was a good learning experience to know to never be with a person like that again, or to get into a kind of relationship dynamic like that again. Yeah. But I've said it in lots of different ways. It was a difficult relationship. And however, I still feel like we're stuck at this point. Like, we've got up to this point, and it's like, I cannot move the story past this point. Because every time I say that it was a difficult relationship, I feel like I'm just generalizing millions of different shitty experiences into one fucking conglomerated statement of it was a shitty relationship. And it's still like, if I can just tell the full story of this one relationship, then everything afterwards becomes easier. Because I feel like the genesis of all the shit that came afterwards, it began in that shit relationship. Because after that relationship, the rest of my life went to absolute shit for the next 7 or 8 years. So it's like after 2006, yeah, after 2006, then goodbye to any sense of normality in my life for about 8 years. 8 years. Fuck. Yeah. 8 years. And it began in that relationship. It began there. Yeah. So I'm still stuck at that point. I'm still stuck at the Mr. B point. And because it's like, if I can fucking clear up this Mr. B relationship and just have said everything that there is to say about it, then it's almost like the things afterwards will make more sense. It'll be more easy for me to kind of go through them. I've been through a lot of them already, right? I've already told you everything, but it's the parts after being in the relationship with Mr. B are all like jumbled and weird, and like I'm doing things based on various different impulses and feelings and understandings and spirituality, and it's all kind of messy. And I feel it's like over there. In my aura, it's like, and it's just like this kind of weird spiral swirly thing is what happens afterwards. And it's very difficult to find the through line as to the coherency of narrative. Like, okay, so what happened then? Like, which events happened, and then what happened after that, and then what happened after that, what happened after that, and kind of like linearly to see the events in a sequence. Because after the relationship with Mr. B ends, it's like my mind was kind of blown open, my emotions were blown open, and my behavior was blown open as well, and my decision making was completely changed. So many different things happened, so many new experiences that I kind of purposely went on or decided to do, and things happened as well from the outside that it's just like, whoa, okay. And I feel like the reason they're hard to put into order is because I haven't figured out where they came from, and to fully understand why I made the decision to leave Mr. B and to quit uni and change my life in that way. If I can fully understand that, then it kind of makes sense, and I can go back to those moments and move them forward in a progression in the story, so I can kind of repace my steps. Yeah, retread my steps, repace my steps, whatever. Because I find it really hard to repace my steps. Now I can sort of remember the bits, the big things that happen, but I don't know why, and like, so what order and stuff. And it's important as well, because if I can get through the whole of the Mr. B relationship and kind of pick that apart and get it to a level where I can actually tell that story easily and it's understandable and digestible and stuff, then it explains why I went to the next part, and that next part, if I can deal with that stuff easily and understandably, it explains how I ended up in the psychiatric ward. So it's like from point Mr. B to psych ward. If I can figure out this beginning part and why that was so bad, and all the different things that happened, and how that affected me, and how that sent me on this next part of the journey, and how that next part of the journey eventually ended up with me being a psychiatric ward for psychosis and for depression and stuff. And then that kind of, it will make everything make sense. So I still haven't figured it out. As in, it's not even figuring it out, it's just being able to tell the damn story accurately, or just to say what happened, to say how it felt. It's still a big, like, blob of energy, a blob of wounded energy inside here that hasn't been expressed fully. Okay, well, it seems that these videos tend to be like a 1 hour 11. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. 11:11. Well, 1:11. Let's see if I can go 11, 11, 11, 1, 11, 11. Let's count up to 11. 1, 11. I bet if I click it though, it won't quite get the right thing. We'll see what we can do. Bye.